There are over 600 million people in Latin America, thousands of artists grinding every single day, millions of songs being recorded in tiny studios, garages, bedrooms, and makeshift booths all across the continent. And out of all of that noise, all of that talent, all of that hunger, only 3 names have ever crossed a line so exclusive that most artists will spend their entire careers dreaming about it and never even get close. 3. That is it. Bad Bunny, Karol G, and now Peso Pluma. If you thought the music industry was a fair game where the best always rise to the top, what you're about to read is going to make you stop and rethink everything you believed about fame, timing, and what it really takes to shake the entire world with nothing but your sound. Welcome to Pop Showroom, where we bring you the stories behind the headlines. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because this story goes deeper than anything you've seen in the mainstream media. Let us start from the beginning, because this story does not make sense unless you understand what 5 billion streams actually means. Not 5 million, not 500 million, 5 billion. That is 5,000 million plays on Spotify alone. We are not talking about views on YouTube where your abuela accidentally replays the same video 14 times. We are talking about intentional, deliberate, real people pressing play on a song because they want to hear it. 5 billion times. To put that in perspective, if you started playing one song on repeat the moment you were born and never stopped, not to eat, not to sleep, not for anything, you would need more than 150 years just to hit that number manually by yourself. That is how astronomical this achievement is, and only 3 Latin artists on the entire planet have pulled it off with a single album. Now here's where it gets interesting. Bad Bunny doing it made sense to people eventually. The man spent years building, hustling, dropping hits one after another, becoming the most streamed artist in the world multiple times in a row. People saw that coming because Bad Bunny had been cooking for a long time before the world really caught on. When his numbers exploded, people said, okay, he put in the work, he earned it. Then Karol G did it, and people were amazed, but again, Karol had been in the game for years, grinding through the come-ups, taking her hits, building a fan base that was ferociously loyal. When her album broke records, it felt like a woman who had been waiting for her crown finally got it placed on her head. The world celebrated because it felt deserved after a long journey. But Peso Pluma, that is a completely different conversation. That is the kind of story that makes veterans in the industry sit down and go quiet for a second. Because Peso Pluma did not spend a decade slowly building before exploding. This man came out of nowhere and hit the world like a freight train that nobody saw on the tracks. If you were not paying attention to Mexican music closely just a couple of years ago, you probably heard the name and said, "Who?" And then suddenly he was everywhere. All at once, unavoidable, inescapable, the kind of artist that you could not scroll past without stopping to ask, what in the world is this sound, and why does it feel so good? Hassan Emilio Cabande Laya, born in Guadalajara, Mexico, grew up in a world where music was not just entertainment, but a language, a lifestyle, a way of surviving the street and making sense of it. He was not handed anything. He didn't come from a famous family in the industry. He didn't have a powerful manager pulling strings behind the scenes from day one. What he had was a voice that sounded unlike anything else in regional Mexican music, a look that broke every unwritten rule about what a corrido artist was supposed to look like, and a hunger that you could feel in every single bar he ever recorded. The double bun hairstyle, the fashion-forward outfits, the blend of trap and corridos tumbados, everything about Peso Pluma screamed this is something new, something different, something that the old guard was not ready for. And the old guard was definitely not ready. When he started gaining traction, there were people who dismissed him, critics who said the corrido purists would never accept this hybrid sound, industry people who thought the look was too unconventional, too risky, too far from what had always worked in that lane. Even some fans of traditional regional Mexican music pushed back, saying this was not real enough, not authentic enough, not connected enough to the roots of the genre. And here's the thing about that kind of resistance. It almost always means something powerful is happening. Because throughout music history, the artists who got the most pushback early on are almost always the exact ones who end up changing everything. Peso Pluma did not argue with the critics. He didn't go on interviews to defend himself or explain his vision to people who had already made their minds up. He did what every real artist does when the noise gets too loud. He went back to work. He kept recording, kept collaborating, kept pushing his sound into new territory while staying rooted in the energy that made people feel something raw and real when they heard him. And then Double P dropped, and the entire conversation changed overnight. The album hit like something people were not prepared for, not just in Mexico, not just in Latin America, but globally. Songs from that project started appearing in playlists from countries that had no historical connection to corridos, no cultural framework for what Peso Pluma was doing, and yet they were pressing play over and over again because the feeling translated even when the language did not. That's the marker of a truly transcendent artist. When someone who has never set foot in Guadalajara, who doesn't speak a word of Spanish, who grew up in a completely different musical tradition, still finds themselves nodding their head and feeling something in their chest when they hear your music, you have crossed a line that most artists chase for their whole careers without ever finding. The streams started climbing at a pace that made analysts do double takes. The numbers were not adding up in the way that normal viral moments add up. Usually, when an artist has a big moment, you see a spike and then a slow descent back to a baseline. What happened with Peso Pluma was different. The numbers kept climbing. New listeners kept discovering him. Songs that had already been out for months were gaining fresh momentum because someone shared it with someone who shared it with someone else, and the chain kept going. That word of mouth, that organic fire, is the most powerful promotional tool in existence, and it cannot be faked or bought. It has to be earned through music that actually moves people, and Peso Pluma's music was moving people everywhere. Then came the collaborations that turned the volume all the way up. When you start seeing an artist link up with the biggest names across multiple genres, and the results keep hitting, that's when you know this is not a moment, this is a movement. Peso Pluma started moving through the industry the way very few artists have the confidence and talent to move, touching different worlds without losing what made him special in the first place. He would jump on a track with someone from a completely different corner of music, and instead of sounding like a guest trying to fit in, he sounded like he belonged there all along, which is one of the rarest qualities any artist can have. And the cultural impact went way beyond music. Peso Pluma became a conversation about identity, about what Latin masculinity looks like, about how genre borders are invented by people who benefit from keeping sounds separate, and what happens when a young artist from Mexico decides those borders simply don't apply to him. His fashion started influencing people. His double buns became a style statement. Young men in cities across Mexico, across the United States, across South America started moving differently because of how this one artist carried himself. That's not something a label engineer or a marketing campaign can manufacture. That's real cultural power, and it only comes when an artist is genuinely themselves in a way that gives other people permission to be genuinely themselves too. The Spotify milestone did not come out of hype alone. 5 billion streams on a single album is sustained attention, which is something entirely different from viral popularity. Viral moments are fast and loud, and then they disappear. Sustained attention means that months after the album dropped, people are still coming back. New listeners who discovered the project 6 months late are binging the whole thing in one sitting and then going back to the beginning and doing it again. That retention is what separates real cultural impact from a social media trend that burns bright for 2 weeks and then nobody talks about it anymore. Peso Pluma built something that kept pulling people back in, and the numbers on Spotify are the proof that cannot be argued with. Now think about what it means to be in the same sentence as Bunny and Karol G when we are talking about this achievement. Bunny has been called the most streamed artist in the world. He redefined what a Latin male pop star could look like and sound like and talk about. He turned Puerto Rican slang and culture into something that fashion houses in Paris were paying attention to. He sold out stadium tours in minutes. He became a figure that extended so far beyond music that even people who do not follow Latin music at all know exactly who he is. To be in the same elite group as that man when it comes to streaming records is not a small thing. And Karol G rewrote what a woman in Latin music could achieve in terms of commercial power. She proved that a female artist could top global charts without compromising, without shrinking herself, without playing by the rules that the industry had set out for women in her lane. Her concerts became events that felt more like religious experiences than shows. People traveled across countries just to see her perform.
She built a community around her music that is one of the most passionate and loyal fan bases in all of music, not just Latin music, all of music. And Peso Pluma is now sitting at the same table as these two people. Let that sink in for a moment. What makes this even more staggering is the timeline. The speed at which Peso Pluma got here is almost disrespectful to how long the road is supposed to be. People work for 15, 20 years trying to build the kind of reach and impact he has achieved in what feels like a blink. And before anyone tries to reduce that to luck, understand that the music industry has seen 1,000 artists who were in the right place at the right time with decent songs, and they faded quickly because the music did not have enough depth to hold anyone for long. Peso Pluma's music held. It grabbed people by something real and did not let go. And that is not luck. That is craft. Even if the craft is dressed up in street clothes and delivered with a coolness that makes it look effortless. The story is also important for what it says about the global moment that Latin music is living in right now. For decades, Latin artists who wanted to cross over into mainstream global markets were told they needed to sing in English, they needed to adapt their sound, they needed to meet international audiences halfway by moving toward what those audiences already knew and liked. What Bunny, Karol G, and Peso Pluma have all proven in their own distinct ways is that the crossing over can happen in the other direction. The world can come to you. People can learn to love something they have never heard before if that thing is powerful enough and honest enough and undeniable enough. These three artists did not move toward the world, they made the world move toward them, and that shift in power is something that is going to ripple through the music industry for years to come. There are young kids in Guadalajara right now who are watching what Peso Pluma did and picking up microphones for the first time. There are producers in small studios across Mexico who are experimenting with sounds they would have been afraid to try 2 years ago because the market seemed too rigid and the gatekeepers seemed too powerful. Peso Pluma cracked something open, the same way Bunny cracked something open, the same way Karol G cracked something open, and the music that comes out of those cracks is going to keep surprising the world for a long time. 5 billion streams, 3 Latin artists ever. One of them started as a kid from Guadalajara who wore double buns and blended corridos with trap and refused to let anyone tell him what his sound was supposed to be. The history books are being written right now, in real time, on a platform that counts every single play, and Hassan Emilio Cabande Laiha is on the right side of that history in a way that nobody who dismissed him early on is ever going to be able to explain away. The numbers do not lie, the streams do not lie, and the millions of people around the world who keep pressing play every single day are not lying either. Peso Pluma is not a moment, he is a chapter, and this chapter is just getting started. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this story.